Okay, so good morning, everybody. I see we have 29 people so far, and I'm sure people will come in. And I expect to see people fading in and out because we know with everybody using the internet, and I don't know what kind of connectivity you have, we expect that we'll have that. So just to reassure you, the session is being recorded, and we will make the link to the recording available. I am Dan Turaban Kosi. I know quite a few of you. I'm seeing the names. So welcome to the session. I work at the Center for Excellence in Teaching and Learning. I'm here with my colleague, Dr. Justin Zephyrin, who is the e-learning support specialist at the center. And so we'll both be doing the session. I'll start off and then Justin is going to take over perhaps about midway um, through the session. So the last time we had this on Tuesday, it was very interactive. So we ended up going a little bit over time because we wanted to address the issues raised. So I'm hoping that we could finish within the time that I've allotted. You see, we start at 10:30 and we to end at 12:45. So we'll do our best to stay within the time frame because I know people have meetings and other issues. And with this whole thing of changing your assessments, I know you all probably have a lot to do with your course. So let me get right into it. So for this session today, we want to really focus on two objectives. We want you to be able to have a clear understanding of what we mean when we talk about alternative assessments and identify different types of assessments that can be done online. We're not going to give you an exhaustive list, but we'll give you an idea. So you could look at what you're doing and determine whether what you're doing will be considered alternative assessments or not. Secondly, we want you to be able to think about the tools in myeLearning and consider how suitable they are for the type of assessments that you're thinking of doing for your exam. So we want to start off with a quick poll because we have to get a sense of where you all are, and what's happening. So to get a sense of what you're doing, we're going to set up a quick poll here in Blackboard Collaborate. It's going to come up on the side of the screen and we'll just ask you to simply click, we give you a set of options. So you're seeing it there. Which type of final assessment do you plan to use for your course? And we have some options there, but you see we also have other. And so if you don't see an option there, you click the other, and then in the chat, we want you to kind of expand and see what it is you're doing, all right? So just go right ahead and select. All right, so I'm seeing, let me see. So if you don't see it, as I said, you could put right. I see Andrea, thank you, take home assignment. And you could just put what form it is, what kind of take home assignment. Mina has a research paper, okay. Research paper. Anything else that's in the other? I've seen 8 in the other category, but I only got responses right. Open book take home exam, right. Take home mapping worksheet, good. Number of questions to be submitted, okay, right. Take home exam, right. Okay, so generally, right, Karelma, you're considering combining short answer questions along with online quiz and maybe grading forums of participation. All right, we'll have to talk about the online quiz, Karelma. Gloria is going to take home open book case studies. Excellent. So yours is a kind of combination, something problem-based essay. Good. All right, so we have a good sense of what people are doing. We have a few short answers. There are 10 people who haven't responded yet. If you don't see it there, you could simply click other and give a sense of what it is. All right.
Good morning. Can I ask
Morning.
why you didn't include multiple choice as an option yet?
Right. Okay. Because and I'll go to that right after this. So just hold on it. I'll answer that question right after we finish. So a few people have responded, but I think it's sufficient for us to move on. So we wanted to get a good sense of it, and a couple of you indicated, right, so Justin is saying the top responses, 12 other 4 essay, 3 short answer questions. Now, Karalma had put in hers quiz, and somebody asked about the multiple choice. Now, we are now bound by some guidelines that were sent out by the Board for Undergraduate Studies and Board for Graduate Studies and Research. And those guidelines, and the campus is adhering to that, those guidelines indicate that you're not to do any time-based synchronous assessments, and they are definitely saying from the campus perspective they are not accepting multiple choice exams, multiple choice questions for your exam, final exam. That doesn't stop you from using your multiple choice quizzes and so on for your in-course activities as you may have been doing. But for the final exam, they are saying that no multiple choice questions are to be done. And this has to do with, you said it's just some of you are having it getting on Blackboard with your internet access. They don't want any kind of timed exam where you have an hour, 2 hours, 3 hours. You have a limit in terms of time to do something which you have to be doing online. So if you get bumped off, if you don't have internet access, or anything like that, it means you, the student, you're placed at a disadvantage. So for that reason, the campus is saying no multiple choice questions at all, even if it is delayed, meaning you give them over a period of time, and they're saying so that's the question. 2 to 7 days is timed, but not timed in the same way. They're talking about timed in terms of synchronous. So it means it's happening all at the same time in a short space of time. And Matthias, even though we could say, because we were thinking for the quiz, you could have a quiz that's continuous, that's part of, say, over 2 days you could do this quiz, um, and the students have that time to do it. The administration is saying they're not accepting that for now. All right. Now, I mean, you can argue with us, but this is not coming out of us. We are not saying that anything is wrong with having a quiz as an examination in terms of a pedagogical position. But given the current situation, the university has decided that for the final exam, they do not want people to be using the quiz as an option. That's all we're saying. Okay, so I know that you all would have varying positions on it, as do we, but this is the position of the university, which we don't have any control over. All right?
Can I just
Go
say that
ahead.
yeah, I was thinking that the primary goal of any assessment, one, is to be valid.
Yes.
Um, it has to have integrity.
Yes.
And I think that Bus is ignoring the primary pillars that makes an examination valid and having integrity. And
Yes.
it's swapping out these goals for some other goals that are not the traditional goals of an assessment. We don't have the problem. Well, for me, I don't have the problem with the open book, but for open book over a 2 day period, that's totally ridiculous. Everybody will exchange answers. Everybody, I mean, this is a nightmare. I mean, an open book over a 2 day period is a nightmare in my profession.
Yeah.
So I
Well,
don't. I prefer to
yeah.
defer my exam. I am going to defer my exam because my exam cannot be done. I cannot test my learning outcomes over a 2 day period with any type of assessment.
Okay. All
So
right.
that's
So what
it.
so what you would have to do in your case is you'd have to have that discussion in your department, and you all would have to thrash it out at that level. Because I understand what you're saying.
Actually,
And
we did, and we had it across campuses as well. And the
yes,
other two campuses agree with me, and they are
yes.
doing the same I'm doing.
And
But
they're
I don't
doing?
know. I did done short answers and multiple choice as well.
Okay. Well, you can do short answers. They've said that you can do short
But
answers.
over a 2 day period, that's my problem. Over a 2 day
Oh,
period
okay.
is ridiculous.
Yes, but so as I said, there's nothing that Justin and I can do from our position. We have been told that this is it, and you would have to liaise with your um with your head of department. Short answers are allowed, but as is it Matthias? Is it Matthias who is speaking? Hello?
Hello, hi.
Yeah. Oh, who was it speaking just now? Oh, Wayne. Yes. So, sorry, Wayne. As Wayne was saying, you can do it, but it's to be over a 2 day period. Whatever you do, the minimum time you must give your students to do anything is 2 days. So whatever you give them, you have to give them 2 days to do it. Right? Now, part of that, the guidelines that were circulated also focuses on encouraging you to do what they call alternative assessments, and in particular, authentic assessments. Authentic assessments are a form of alternative assessments. Now, some people are asking, well, what's the difference between that and what we've been doing all the time? What we've been doing all the time for exams are called traditional assessments, all right? And when you think of it, that's those conventional methods that you use to test. And they usually where you produce a written document and you sit in the controlled time exam setting, which is what Wayne is talking about. And he's saying for what he's doing, and in terms of the integrity of it, he cannot see he cannot see it being done over a period of time. He needs that control time setting, right? And that's a traditional assessment. Now, what Bus is proposing, what Bus is proposing is alternative assessments, which can also be valid, right? They also considered a valid form of examination, but the way you go about doing it is totally different. Now, the kinds of alternative assessments that you may have to come up with, depending on your field, is where people tend to have the problem because all fields are different, and the way you would assess in one field traditionally may make it seem difficult to come up with your alternative assessment. Um, Somebody saying they didn't see SAQ, short answer questions, come up as an alternative on the document that was sent to you, or they did give you alternatives in there. Well, if you look at what I'm suggesting in terms of the alternative assessments, the general guideline was to try to look at developing alternative assessments. Now, short answer questions can be done in a way that they can be considered alternative assessments. Look at that definition we have there. Alternative assessments are a form of, we're going to performance assessment. So the key is, and Wayne talked about his outcomes, and I was very happy to hear that he's starting out with his outcomes. If you think about what you want your students to demonstrate to you in terms of their outcomes in your course, the alternative assessment focuses on the students being able to demonstrate those skills. And when we talk about authentic assessments, we are talking about those assessments that almost reflect the real life tasks. So if you're into, say, accounting, the kind of assessment that you give the student should be likened to the knowledge, skills, and so on that you would expect the student to come out of your course with that they would need to perform in the real world situation. All right. So it requires you to think about what is it they should be doing? What's the skill you're really assessing? You need to look at what you have as your learning outcomes in your course. And then you need to craft an assessment that will show you that the student has this skill. Now, people may argue that the knowledge aspects of it, how do you assess that? And you need something to assess that separately. But no, traditional exams don't represent real world situations generally. And that's the difference that they're making, where because they're time based and so on, they may require critical thinking depending on how you design the traditional assessment. They may require application of knowledge, but in terms of the performance of certain skills, you may not necessarily be able to assess it depending on the length of the exam and what you ask them to do in that exam. So generally, traditional assessments do not. The other point about traditional exams is when you assess in that time setting at the end of the semester, what we call the summative assessment, it is usually just assessment of learning. You're assessing whether the students have learned over the year, and that's that. They do it and they're gone, and that's it. They get no feedback on what they've done there, and it's the end of it. Alternative assessments and authentic assessments are usually intended to be two things: assessment for learning and assessment of learning, which is why the issue with the cheating and so on, you have to look at how you can avoid cheating, but how you can use the forum for students to learn. They come out, the point of teaching is for the students to learn, all right? And so the assessment, they're suggesting that you craft the assessment in such a way that what they are doing is part of the learning. As they do the assessment, they are learning. And then at the end of it, you are assessing their learning. So it's doing two things: assessment of learning and assessment for learning. And you have to design it in such a way that it makes it not only difficult for the student to cheat, but it, it's so interesting and engaging and motivating that the students want to do it. They want to do it, and they want to do it on their own. And it is something that even if they ask for help, it is not to do it, but it is not to do it totally for the student, but it is part of the learning process. All right? Because if you think of people in a real life situation, when you get a job in whatever field and you go into that situation, there may be things that you never learned and you get there, but you're expected to know it. And a colleague may help you, but you have to, at the end of the day, do it. All right? So, alternative assessment takes you through a learning process and assesses what you have learned at the end through the tasks or activities that you have given the student to do related to those outcomes. And I know one of the main things about it is that concern about the cheating, and I know that, and we've been hearing it. Okay. Yes, your coursework assignments do, and now we're asking in this situation that you now do the same kind of thing at this time at the end of the semester as well. Because what you all have to recognize too is, and we all have to come to that understanding, is not business as usual. Things are not the same. We can't bring thousands of students together in a room to do an exam. Um, and you could never check all your learning outcomes, but you do need to map your learning outcomes that you may have missed through the in-course activities and assessments. You now have to come up with an assessment that matches with those key learning outcomes that the students must come out with. So it is going back and trying to map your learning outcomes with what you're asking the students to do. Okay? Um, I'm hearing some feedback. Somebody's mic is on and I'm not sure whose it is I'm looking through, but I can't see. So if we could mute our mics. So I want you all to watch this. This is a short video. It's about 3 minutes. I'm going to post the link to the video in the chat. All right, it's just 3 minutes long. We don't want to share the video Yes, Justin has put it and I've also put it. Um, and I just wanted to take a quick look at the video, just 3 minutes, and then we come back. And I know some of you are saying you're not comfortable, you prefer to defer your exam, um, but that's an issue you all will have to discuss at the level of your department and your faculty. So in 3 minutes, we're gonna come back in and just take it from there. If there's anything else you want to post in the chat, you could put it in the meantime. We see to the best of our ability. At the end of this, we also have a whole set of rules that were sent us this morning about the exams and so on. I don't know if it came out of ACWAC. Um, but again, we are the messengers at this point. So, um, you know, we'll discuss as we go along and we'll share what we know and what information we have. Yeah, I want you all, I see David James put, what about ensuring qualifications are credible, right? Um, I want you all to, I'm assuming that people are back now, and I want you all to sit for a moment and reflect and think about the fact that this is not a UE situation. This is a world situation. Universities all over the world are facing this situation. And people have responded in different ways. There's some universities that have decided they have exams and it's pass fail. There's some universities that have decided that they have gone over all their assessments. All their assessments are going to be online. All their assessments are going to be asynchronous. And they're even shortening some of the word limits, etc., etc., etc. So different universities are responding in different ways, but everybody is responding. Now, I know credible in terms of technical knowledge from class, also being able to do things practically in the real world. That's what Michael is asking. Um, I assume that David was thinking credible, being able to withstand the scrutiny, adhering to the good practices for quality in teaching and learning and so on. And yes, David, we are. Because while some people, like Wayne, are uncomfortable with the idea of moving away from the typical traditional exams, alternative assessments and authentic assessments are a valid form of assessments, and they are recognized as credible once all the other criteria that go around that are adhered to, because there are guidelines for developing authentic assessments which help to make them valid, right? Exactly. You do that in your coursework. Now, the other point to note is whatever exam you have, whatever form of assessment you have, there are persons who will find a way to cheat. So even if we say, go ahead and do your quiz, students will find a way. I used to work in the open campus, and we used to have multiple choice over a period of time where students would be able to go in over a week or so and do their assessments. And so we did not have any of the established tools like what they have now with the responders or whatever you call it, where the camera is looking at you so they could see you doing it and so on. We didn't have all of that, so you had to depend on the students. Students would find ways to cheat. So no matter what you do, there are students who will find a way to cheat. So we, as the persons who are creating the assessments, have to do it in such a way that it for want of a better way of phrasing it, it makes it more difficult, or it makes it more distasteful, or it makes it more nonsensical for the student to cheat. And that is what we're asking people to do. Because we're in a situation where, whether we like it or not, we do not know, even if you say you're going to move your exam, when that may be possible to do. Are you going to move your exam to next year? Because the way things look, we don't know if come September we'll still be at home doing online teaching and learning. So these are the things that we have to think about. Um, so we're going ahead with that as the backdrop against which we're sharing these ideas with you. So the screen you're seeing there just poses some methods for alternative assessments and some of the skills that you can develop, the student can develop, along with, of course, you have to build in the content aspects of that as you build your assessment. we are talking about the other general skills, and I'm sure a lot of you in your course outlines have some of those other skills um, that you require the students to have. So Michael is asking, would it be possible to give each student different problems? That is, if I have 6 students, can I give them 6 different exams? So it's not 6 different exams. It's one exam, but you have different question options, and you're giving different students different assignments to do. You see, if you do that, you have to be sure that nobody's being placed at a disadvantage. How do you know that all 6 questions are equally weighted, for want of a better way of putting it? So they all require the same level of critical thinking or application or whatever. So maybe there's 6 different cases, but the cases are all requiring the same level of analysis and the same kind of analysis, just the scenarios are different. So maybe something like that, you know. Um, so these are some of the examples. They're by no means exhaustive, but there's some examples, and they may not apply to every field, but they can be tweaked. We had a big discussion in the previous session about peer assessment and whether peer assessment could be applied in engineering or in medical sciences. Somebody thought it was only education, but peer assessment could be applied in any case. But some people would be uncomfortable with how you use that as a form of assessment. So what we've been telling people is you need to find a form of assessment that you are comfortable with. That so David, you applied in engineering, great. um you can you can you have to find something that you're comfortable with, and Sharice is saying people can still collaborate with different exams. Yes, they can. And my point is, what is the issue with collaboration if at the end of the day the student still has to apply their own critical thinking skills? They're not going to copy exactly what the person said. If they can still apply their own critical thinking skills and their own understanding of the material to arrive at a result. Right? So yes, Justin, David would have been an excellent example for a previous workshop because engineering was raised as a place where you can't have peer review. So I'm very glad you raised that. Right, so this takes me to the slide you're seeing now with what is a prompt. Now we have to focus on the prompt, what we're calling the prompt. Think of it as the instructions and the actual question. So if it's a short answer question, if it's a project, if it's a portfolio they're doing, some people said take home exam, whatever it is, that prompt is what you are telling the students there to do in the assessment. And if you're giving somebody something to do over 2 days, over a week, you have to be very clear on what you're giving them to do. If it's short answer questions, what short answer questions are you giving them that will take them over a period of 2 days to do? So these are some of the things you have to be asking yourself. And the prompt, we want you all to write prompts that, first of all, avoid confusion. So the students must know, all right, what is it Sharice is asking me to do? What is it David is asking me to do? And how is it, and this is for you to think about very clearly, how it connected to your learning outcomes, your objectives, your learning goals that you would have put at the beginning of that course outline. So that the students know where they are going, right? With a poorly written prompt, the student would do something that they felt you asked them to do, and it didn't really demonstrate it because they didn't even understand what you were asking them. Some of them may have the knowledge, they may have the skill, but because they didn't understand what you were asking them, they did something totally different. Students do that in the exam too all the time, and you wonder, how did the student arrive at this response? And this was a good student. All right? So where and when will the students be presented with the prompt? The prompt is what you'll be giving the student, and I call it a prompt, it doesn't mean an answer. A prompt is, think of it as the instructions, the guidelines. So you have to give the students those guidelines before the period of when they have to hand in their assignment. So for instance, if it's a 2-day assignment, you have to give them the prompt in enough time so that they have 2 days to do the assignment. If it's a week, you have to give them the prompt before so that the time frame from when they get the prompt to when they have to submit the prompt is the 7 days or the week or whatever. So that's when they get the prompt. Um, so prompt. So how do you create this prompt? Again, I'm going back to what I think it was Wayne who started with his learning outcomes and so on. What are the objectives for the assignment? And as somebody else said, I don't know if it was Wayne too, you can't, in an exam, you could never assess all the learning outcomes in the course. You have to determine which are the higher level ones that you're going to be assessing in that exam. Because one would assume that you have been assessing learning outcomes throughout, and you would have started with your knowledge and so on, the lower level learning outcomes early on. And so now, when it comes to the final exam, there will be some of that, but you some deeper ones that are higher level learning outcomes that you want to assess. So you have to pick and decide based on what you have done throughout the semester, what are the key learning outcomes I'm going to be assessing now? All right. Then you decide on a task that corresponds to that and will help the students achieve it. And again, I make the point that you have to choose something that is a good use of the time. So if it's 2 days, if it's a week, whatever, make sure it's, of course, challenging, because we go back to that whole thing of quality. You don't want to, you want them to be engaged. You want them to be doing something, all right? And so this is one prompt. Now, I have to give you the context for the prompt. So it wasn't, and some of you here would have been in this course, CETL, and this was the 2016-17 intake. And the course, the objective, this particular objective for this assessment, which was an end of course assessment, the course was 100% coursework. So this was part of the grades. And the objective was for lecturers to be able to develop lecture capture lectures using their PowerPoint. So to be able to do lecture capture so that they could have sessions online with their students. All right. So the skill was to create these lecture capture presentations that could be used in their class for teaching and learning. All right. And so the guidelines was they had to, the guidelines were they had to read the materials, the relevant teaching materials, and then prepare this lecture capture presentation using a particular software. They could choose what they wanted to use. Then select one of the topics in the course outline and prepare a 10-minute presentation. So they know exactly the length of the presentation, they know where they're supposed to get the guidelines to do it, and they know that they have to choose a topic from the course outline. Then we give the instructions for, okay, how do you submit this thing that you do? So you're going to, when you create your presentation using the software, it's 10 minutes long, you then upload that presentation to your YouTube channel. They would have created the YouTube channel beforehand, all right? So that's why I didn't need to give them any other explanation about that. Upload it to your YouTube channel, and then post the link in the discussion forum in myeLearning, and give them the specific link to post it in. And now remember, we're not suggesting that you use the discussion forum for your exam. This particular course, it was relevant and it was the tool to be used for this course, for this form of assessment. It doesn't mean that you necessarily have to use a discussion forum, just making that clear. Then further details were given. So your prompt, think of your prompt as the question and the instructions for completing and submitting whatever your assessment is. So it's what you're asking them to do, the instructions for it, to do it, and the instructions for submitting it. All of that should go into your prompt. The next thing that must go with your prompt is a rubric, what we call a rubric. And we're not talking here about a marking scheme. I know for exams, usually you're supposed to submit your question paper and your answer sheet to the exam section. Now you're required to do more. You have to prepare something more detailed, and this is called a rubric, right? Um, and you, in that rubric, you're going to be specifying the parameters and so on, the criteria that you're going to be using for assessing, making it very clear and reducing, well, you're making it very clear what your expectation is for the task. You're not giving away the answer. That's not what we're saying. We're saying you're giving criteria by which you will be assessing. The rubric is useful not only for the student, but for you, for the grading, to make it a bit more standardized. And I'm sure quite a few of you already use rubrics, so I might be speaking to the converted. This next screen is a little bit busy, it's a little small because it's a snapshot of the rubric for the assessment that I showed you all, the prompt that I showed you all. And what I want to just point out to you is, you have, usually in a rubric, you have one side that has the criteria that you're using to assess, which you will determine based on what you're assessing, and then the standard for that assessment, the quality, the criteria that you're using to judge is on this side, and the standard would be on the other side. This one has exemplary, proficient, partially proficient, unsatisfactory. Some people have good, fair, poor, weak. You work that out, and then you assign the points and you give a description that aligns with what you see as exemplary, proficient, etc., etc. All right, and then you weight your criteria according to your outcomes and what you weigh more heavily. So if, for instance, for a particular assignment that you're giving a student, the weighting is more towards something that is that they have to create, then that would be more points, right? So in this case, the layout was less. You have 2 points here, whereas the content was 3 points. So you have to determine the weighting based on your course and what you want to achieve. All right. Now, there are particular questions that you'd address in a prompt for the assignment. For all of you who had registered from yesterday, I sent an email today with 2 handouts. One is one with the guidelines for the prompts, and the other is a template that Justin will be talking through a little bit later. Did people get those handouts? Just asking. Only 2 people I think should not have received it. Those have been the people who didn't register yesterday, and they might have joined us. Right, good, great. So the handout has these guidelines here. So I'm going to skip to the activity to save time, because this takes a little bit of time, and it's something I want you all to do because we think that you could benefit. We're going to put you all into groups, right? When we put you all into the groups, of course, you're not going to see this screen. You're going to be placed in a room like this, but you all will have control over your screen. And what we want you to do in there is, because of the size of the group and the time that we have, we want one person in the group to volunteer to share their assessment that they feel meets the criteria that we're talking about, or share an assessment that you plan to use, but you feel that you want some feedback to see how you could make this an alternative assessment and fit within the guidelines that are required. Okay? So you share that in your group. We'll tell you how to share it in a minute. You share it in your group and you have a discussion. Let people critique it using the guidelines that you all should have, and give you some feedback on what you should do. In this way, it should help everybody. And then nominate the person whose assessment it is, or if somebody else wants to share, to come out and share if you all have made any changes, what kind of changes you all have made, and so what you think you'll be doing for that final exam. Is that clear on the task? Yes? There's silence. Are you all still there? Right. Okay. Justin and I will float from room to room to just make sure that you all are okay, right? Now, when you get into the room, the person who is going to share, save your file, if it's a file you're sharing, as a PDF file, right? And when you go into the room, on the right side of your screen, you will see the purple arrow. When you click on that purple arrow, the right side, that says left, but it's the right side. You click on the purple arrow, it will open up and you should see a square with an arrow that says share content. Ah, right. Thanks, Justin. Click on the purple arrowhead and click on the middle icon that says share content, and then you click share files, right? And you will see it spinning and thing, and it will save the document into the space there, and then you could just share it on the screen with everybody, and you all can have your discussion. You use the chat and the audio if you like. Now, Justin reminded me the last time, if you need to take a screenshot of anything or save your chat or whatever, because once you leave that space, you will not have access to what you discussed in that space. That's one of the things with Blackboard. When you're in that, when you're in your group room. The other thing with it is, when we throw you into the group room, it's like you're being teleported. You're just flung into the room and you're just there in this room. And so just wait a couple minutes. Martin, you should have, because I just copied all the email addresses from the thing, but I will forward it. Those of you who didn't get it, I will send it to you now. And no, it's not instructions, it's the guidelines for the guidelines for a prompt, which was on the reminder that I sent today. So I will send it to you, Martin, in a little bit.
I was just going to suggest that you guys should copy this. So when you go into your breakout rooms, you have a point of reference. Yeah.
Good, thanks. Yes, good idea, Justin. Right, so that they know what they're doing. So you'll be so unceremoniously flung into the room. So it'll take a couple of minutes. So if while you're in the room, you all could start to discuss who is going to do what and try to see if you could organize to share it. By the time Justin and I get into the room, we could offer some further guidelines if need be. Right? Now, when you're finished, when the time is almost up, I'll come in the room and say, time is up, and we'll put you back in a minute or two, and then you're flung unceremoniously again back into the main room. So I'm just alerting you to that's how it is, so that you don't feel like, oh, what the hell is going on here? It really is as if you're just transported out. So so that's it. So
it's like a prepaid cell phone plan.
Okay, Justin. So we're gonna put you all into the groups now. People who have internet difficulties, sometimes they keep getting bumped out, so you may end back up in the main room with nobody else in there. Once we come and we see you, we'll try and put you back into your group. All right? So just so that you know these things. So Martin, I'm going to forward the email to you while Justin puts people into groups, and then we'll float in between the groups. So as you get in your group, please try and volunteer and let somebody share their assignment, and you all work on that. So when you come back, you could share what you've learned from it. Okay? So see you all in the rooms. All right, you all have been teleported back.
And you see the term, we need to learn the terminologies too.
I just use that to, somebody said that they feel like they're teleported. So I liked it. It's like sci-fi, you know. I was a big Star Trek fan, you know.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm a big Star Trek fan. So
I was thinking the same thing when you said teleported. I was like, beam me out, Scotty, or some kind of thing.
yeah. Right, so could we do some sharing now? Everybody's back in the room, right? So we could start with, well, group one. I know you all had a shaky start initially, but who is going to, Onella, you going to talk, or you'll, you'll have, who you all elected to talk? This was a shy group,
Hi, I guess I will talk.
right?
So, the assessment that I wanted to assess students on was I wanted them to create a marketing plan for a new product, and I also wanted them to create a print ad for that particular product,
Mm-hmm.
right? And what I was going to assess, it will be assessing students are required to evaluate the product as an innovation in terms of the intended market that it will be sold in. They will have to look at the relative advantage, the complexity, the observability. They will have to identify major problems and resistance to the product, especially its acceptance based on preceding evaluations. In class, we looked at the 4 Ps. So I would want them to describe the market in which the product is to be sold. For example, a particular geographical region. They should be able to identify the consumer buying habits. So, for instance, they should be able to look at product use patterns, product feature preferences, as well as shopping habits. They should be able to look at the distribution of the product. We looked at retail outlets in class, the product sales by other middlemen. Um, I included the print ad, so they will be looking at advertising and promotion. And I really want to test their creativity to see how well they can, come up with that particular print ad, and just see their creative skills in that sense. It will also assess them in the pricing strategies and competitors relating to the product they want to enter, the new product they're coming up with, any threats of competitors within that particular market.
All right. So for me, all those criteria that you identified, you're going to be putting that into your rubric, right? And
Yes.
assigning, right. The other thing I want to ask is if you thought about how you could, and this is what concerns a lot of you lecturers, um, how you would determine whether it is the student's own work. I'm just
So
asking.
to determine if it's the student's own work, what I wanted to do was that I came up with the idea of them having to do an actual new product, and I was hoping that I would have let students propose their ideas of the new product and what product they want to actually use, and I would give them confirmation for it in the sense that I will know exactly what each student will be doing.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
So a lot of it is trust.
Good idea.
That they would want to do the activity so that they get the skills, so they'll do because of that. A lot of it is trust. Any comments on that from the group? What your thought of the process doing this? What I wanted you all to do is be engaged in the process, which you should engage in for your own assessment. You come up with your idea, you match it with your objectives as the first thing, and then you look to see whether you have all the elements in that will make it a not confusing prompt for the student, and that will allow you to develop your rubric. Okay. Well, I think you're all happy with it, right? So we want to move on to the next group. Michael is saying, how about giving them the products and making sure they have different ones? Why I don't want them coming up with their own product, Michael? Don't you think that's a little more exciting if I could decide what I want to sell or market?
Yes, but I was just thinking about in terms of you being able to know what products they will, because they will have to choose the product, then get back to you. Then you need to get back to them to say yes or no to that. But if you had like a suite of products, it could possibly make it easier.
It depends on the number of
The number
students
of
in the class.
students, yes, of course,
Yeah.
depends on how many students.
Yeah. Okay. So something for you to think about,
Yeah,
Anela.
yeah.
It's, you know, it will, yeah.
I was
I
saying,
mean,
or for example, you could take a website that has top products on it, like Alibaba or something, top 20 products, and tell them to choose from that. That could be so that you will know, so that you will have a smaller spread. Because if each student chooses their own product, then that still, if it's a large class, will be a very large spread.
yeah. Oh, Martin has a question as well.
Yeah, just to
So,
kind of responding to the comment. I think developing the product was one of the criteria, not just to select or choose a product. Develop the product and market the product. So it's not just selecting a product and marketing the product.
okay. All right. Thanks for that. So you see, the idea is to get the options, and it's a good thing too to do if you can to have a chat with colleagues in the same area to see to share ideas. You know, you always come up with with more, with better. Another group.
Let us go. This is our group. If see, we share my screen. Right, let me go to the. We have a number of documents open. Let me go to the attempt. Right. So we didn't quite finish, but we started off by following the steps that you identified. So the
Mm-hmm.
first step was, let me read what was on the first step. Yeah, the first step was to identify the learning outcomes for the assignment.
Right. Yeah.
So what I did, we identified the learning outcomes,
Right.
apply basic security concepts which are used frequently, in et cetera, et cetera.
Mm-hmm.
Um, then step two, if I remember, step two, I have to be switching between documents.
Should
Step two,
think of something that will help you. Will help the students demonstrate that they thing.
so we identified the tasks, and
Right.
the task that we identify here is that we want to write a program to implement objectives A and B.
So they have to
Right?
actually write a program. Okay.
Mm-hmm. All right, good. Then step three, let me go back to this document again. Step three was to choose an assignment that is worthwhile, that is worthwhile use of time, that is interesting and challenging. Um,
Mm-hmm.
so that one,
So that's the
we,
writing the program.
so this is, well, yeah, right. So this is three and four together. So currently CETL server works with 26 characters. You are required to extend this algorithm so that it works with all ASCII characters, including upper and lowercase letters, right? Um, then before we work out these marks, so we went to step five, which is the step with the rubric. We designed this rubric, so um, so we're looking for these skills to demonstrate ability to convert input characters to ASCII values, um, ability to modularize code, ability to write encryption function for Caesar cipher, ability to write decryption function for Caesar cipher. So we then split it up into unsatisfactory, partial, and excellent. And we then had time to fill in all of these on what each uh, requirement meant, because that was time consuming. But we finished the first row. Um, then the next question was, we wanted us to specify the intended audience. Where we did that. And the audience, year two students doing this course. That's the intended audience. That's what you meant, right?
Yeah. Okay.
Okay. Then this is where I start wrong. Sorry, the other way around. See, yes. On sites program. No, we weren't too sure what to do here. You in the this one here. So your access is sorry. Specify the parameters. Specify the parameters, length, size, formatting, citations. Not so much applicable for us, other than that we will want it to be concise.
Okay, just a pause there, because Sharice has two things in the chat. Sharice, you want to just ask now about that? If you go back to your performance criteria through the rubric, and you go up to your objectives. Right. So come down, Sharice. You wanna ask your performance criteria for your rubric.
Okay. Come down.
Yeah.
If you say that the criteria it lacks clear understanding is not testable, so it should be something a little more specific and testable, I think.
Yeah.
Actually, it's the skill that he's testing, Sharice, to demonstrate the ability to convert input. Now, the criteria that you put in on the unsatisfactory, partial, or excellent should describe what you will be looking at to tell whether the person demonstrates that, whether the person can convert input characters to ASCII values. So, if you understand? So that's why Sharice is saying understanding. If you use understanding, how are you going to assess that ability to convert input characters to ASCII values? So you'll have to think about your descriptors.
Actually, we were just naming things, but the reality is that if I had time to do this better.
You don't have time, yeah.
Yeah. We were, yeah. You have to get too technical. So basically, what has happened?
All right, good. So you note it. Go ahead.
Yeah, I note it.
Go ahead.
Okay, so but that's a good point, and we did our group did acknowledge this, so we just put in some stuff quickly.
Okay, good.
Step 8. What's step 8 again? Step 8 was why are the students? Sorry, is the assignment worthwhile, interesting, and challenging? So I said it was moderate. It was moderate. So I don't know if that's a suitable response to that question. So let me go back here. So we said that it was moderate. And then the other question, I said that we are testing the learning outcomes above. I don't know if that's the answer. And I suspect that the answer for the step 10 is that you want us to give a sample answer, right?
Not necessarily. I mean, it's just, well, if they would have done something in class, if I have done something in class, you could tell them this is what it should look like, the end product. So it doesn't have to be for the same question, but whatever skill you're testing, they should know what the expectation is. What is this thing supposed to look like when I'm done? So if we take the earlier example of the marketing plan, what should a marketing plan look like? Are there different samples? So you show them different samples and you say it could look like this, that, or that, depending on what you plug into it.
Well, in programming, this is absolutely possible, because what we can do in a case like this is to give them a working program and show them if they input something, what they're expecting.
Yes, right. So that is it, so that they know what it's supposed to look like at the end.
Yeah, so that's absolutely possible.
And then the grade or score will be from your rubric.
Yeah. All right, good. So that's it for us.
Oh, thank you. Just stop sharing.
Okay, let me kindly do that. So stop sharing. You can stop sharing me.
Okay, I will do that. Stop sharing. Oh, you stop sharing. Thanks, Justin. Um, so any comments on that other than Sharice? I know Sharice made her comment. If no comments, go on to the next one. How many more we have? It's, I think, 6 groups, Justin. Yes? If you don't want to share exactly what you did, at least the process, what you all got out of the process. You all want us to call names now? 5 groups. It's just like the students.
I
like
can go next.
Thank you. Okay. All right.
Thank you so much. So this is for third year geographies of the Caribbean course, and the skills we're trying to help the students develop is their cartography skills, and to critically think about the various problems that are affecting the region, and see how the geographic and historical characteristics, the diversities of the region, give rise to the problems affecting different countries differently. So we're using the COVID-19 pandemic data that's being generated by each country to create a greater Caribbean regional map that each group will work on to essentially produce the groups of 5. I think that was one of the suggestions, groups of 5, and over a 2-week period, they'll use the data that convert it from text format into an Excel file and then create a map. So the first step is for them to go collect the data from John Hopkins website or PAHO or the World Health Organization. The second one is for them to choose how they're going to the analytical criteria they'll use, and to depict the deaths, the cases, and whether this was an imported transmission or local transmission. And the criteria that we got discussing was that there should be a way to give points for the process that the students use to come to develop the map and the ideas. And one way to do that we were thinking was to create a YouTube channel, so they produce a video that keeps track of the point at which the process they go through. Some of the criteria included creativity, use of graphics, layout, accuracy of the data, and I think performance criteria. I think we kind of thought. I think that's pretty much how far we got.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Okay. Comments? Now, of course, you'll have to flesh it out a bit more in terms of the details, instructions that you give the students, and you'd have to add the process part. How do you submit, which Justin will deal with as soon as we finished here. Any other comments? Okay, well, thanks for that. We'll make a general comment at the end. Is there another group to present? Thank you, Alette. Thank you so much.
Hi, good morning. We were group 3. It's Anne-Marie.
Right. Hi, Anne-Marie.
Hi.
Do you want to share anything, or you just talking?
I'm just talking.
Right, good. Okay.
Greg was very, very kind to share with us an assignment after the university had closed. And he was asking his students to do a literature review as the assignment. Now, the literature review was, the instructions were very clear. He gave them, he articulated the task, he specified the parameters, he made it interesting and challenging to the students. The only thing that we did not have, which we noted, and at that point, he would not have known that you would have had to identify specific learning objectives and outcomes for the assignment. and to be able to correspond the objectives, to be able, that was number 2. And the other thing that we did not have was a rubric. So while going through the question prompt handout, we were able to look at the literature review assignment and say, okay, maybe this needed to be changed a little, or this or something else. So what was really very good is we actually had an assignment in front of us that was given to students, and then we were able to say, well, then this needed to be done or that needed to be done, to be able to get it into the question prompt format.
Yes, good. All right. So it really just needed a little more instructions and information to build it, to make it more amenable to the student. Correct?
Yes, and thank you very much, Greg, for sharing that.
Yes, thanks to Greg, and thank you all for sharing. Next group. Last group.
Before you go on.
Yes. Go ahead.
Right, Gloria here. Now,
Yes, Gloria.
I have seen other lecturers work and coming out of open campus. You know, I just have a question for my clarification. Now, if in that literature review, stating 800 to 1,000 words is good enough, or should we just have, say, 800 words or 900 words? Because I was part of this group, you know, and I was wondering whether we should not have been more specific with the number of words. We did decide that we would be specific with the number of articles. But I just want to know if we should also be specific rather than having 800 to 1,000, if that is acceptable too, or if we should just do 800, 900, 1,000.
I personally, I always find that you should be a bit clearer in terms of the limits. Either you say X number of pages, as Michael is suggesting, and you say so many words, give or take. You can say something like give or take 100 words. People do that. But you should be a little more specific, because one person will write 800 words and is very succinct, and another person, and they have captured everything. Another person tends to go off on a tangent and so on. I always feel it's to be as clear as possible. So it might be best if you, rather than between 800 to 1,000 words, either give page limit or say 1,000 words. And you're willing to be lenient, give or take a couple hundred with the student. You're not going to be a hard and fast thing, but I think it's better to be a little bit clearer. Especially that amount seems a bit big. Is a whole between 800 and 1,000, you know.
Well, technically, a range of 800 to 1,000 is the same as instructing the student
to say 15 pages
to prepare the report using 900 words plus or minus 100.
Ah, yeah. It is. But it's left up to you. Nothing is wrong with it, to be honest. Nothing is wrong with saying between 800 to 1,000. You have different schools of thought on whether it should be tighter. So I would leave that up to you to decide based on your students and your experience with what happens when you say that.
Okay. Can I just make one point, please?
That's a good
Diane.
point, Justin. No less than. Yes, go ahead, Anne-Marie.
Yes, I think if it's saying specify the parameters, length, size, formatting, citations, etc., right? And you've specified what your parameters are.
You
and
think
even if you said 800 to 1,000, that's what we specify.
That's a parameter.
To be. Exactly.
Yes.
And that's what, by definition, that's what that is.
I can't argue with you.
I'm just saying, okay, I'm not trying to be. No, but I mean.
But what I would suggest, go ahead.
Because Gregory would know, he would know the literature review can be within that.
Yes.
He knows if you're so succinct, you would write 800 words. If you needed something to elaborate more, you need to up to 1,000 words. So in his mind, as the lecturer, he would have known that this is where it would be. If I put too little, I squeeze the student. Or if I put too much, then the student will say, I need 200 words. But if he left it in such a way that this is where you have to play, that's the part you're playing in, then you would know that's the parameter, I'm going to stay there. That's just my thinking on it.
And then, but Justin was talking about no less than. But Justin, if you say no less than, then you'll have to say no more than. No less than 800, but no more than 1,000. So it ends up being almost the same.
Yeah, but when you say no less than, it's kind of stating a bare minimum, right? But if the problem is that you don't want the student to be writing on and on and on, then that might be a next thing altogether.
Yeah, so I personally don't have a problem with the range. Gloria wanted to say something else.
I was just saying my contributions was based on
your experience.
Yes, was based on having been trained by Open Campus, and we have to be so specific with these online students, and seeing now that we are going this way, I was saying we should be more specific.
Yes, but I came out of Open Campus as well, so that's where that came from. But you also have to go to people. The Open Campus experience is, while we're going to emergency online training, the target group for the Open Campus is a bit different to what the target group for the Syndicate Campus might be. And then you have to go with the lecturer's experience in the area as well. So we would have to allow the lecturer to, based on experience, to also say whether they think it will work. And then remember, teaching is a process and a practice. And based on what happens now, the lecturer would then be able to say, this didn't work, so maybe next time I will try this. So I would say it's fine to say between 800 to 1,000 words. And if it doesn't work, well, next time you fix it. But it is, let's put it this way, it's specific enough in the scenario. For his prompt, it is for now specific enough. All right. So that was the last group. Was that, Justin?
Yeah, I believe so.
Okay, great. I hope that the activity help you all kind of process what you need to do. And Michael had asked a question about the prompt. The prompt is, we calling it a prompt, but the prompt is really a combination of the content, what is it you're asking them to do, the skill and all that, as well as the instructions to do it. And it will also include the process. How are you going to submit, and so on and so on. And for that now, I'm going to hand over to Justin to deal with the process.
Hi. Thanks, Diane. So, as Diane said, we looked at the creation of prompts and, really kind of consolidated our thinking about alternative assessments and how these could be reflected or married to the instructions that you give to students, right? And now we're moving to the process, which is really, how will students do this? What are the means through which students have to complete the tasks and submit their work? And this, of course, will take into consideration the time frame and, as we mentioned, the parameters, not just the parameters in terms of the size of the assignment of it, but also it encompasses the ICTs that students may use to complete the tasks remotely, right? Especially when we are doing that sort of remote teaching and learning assessments and so on. At this particular time, you need to be a little more specific in terms of how students can go about completing the tasks, right, that comprise your assessment. So once students complete the process by submitting, which you see here, the purple thing, by submitting their work, it's then you can go to the third step, of course, where you evaluate their performance. All right? So this part that we're dealing with is really how students are going to do it, right? So this particular slide here, we have some of the main tools that you can use in myeLearning to facilitate alternative asynchronous assessment. Mainly, of course, there are the discussion tool, the Turnitin assignments. Has highly endorsed or instructed us to use Turnitin assignments as much as possible. However, we know this may not always be the case or possible given the nature of some assignments. Yeah. So of course you're encouraged to use assignments, Turnitin assignments as much as possible. But keep in mind that Turnitin assignments only cater to text-based assignments, so assignments like essays and so on, but would not recognize graphics, for example, or images or that kind of thing. So you want to keep that in mind with these alternative assessment strategies and tools in myeLearning. But you also have some other avenues that you can use. All right, these include, as you see here, just next slide. These include external tools or platforms such as Screencast-O-Matic, Powtoons or Padlet, and these different things that you could use and integrate into your myeLearning, your assessment in myeLearning. So, for example, Scratch is a program that can be used to teach or evaluate, assess students' knowledge and practical or skills in computer programming, for example. Yeah. Screencast-O-Matic is another one. If you have, I think in two of the groups we looked at, they spoke about making certain presentations, pre-recorded presentations, or, whether it's in PowerPoint or whatnot. And you can do that through Screencast-O-Matic. They post the link onto YouTube and then copy and paste the link into myeLearning for further assessments. All right, so all of these tools that we see here allow for collaboration, collaborative or individual assessments. And more than that, they've all produced web links, documents, or MP4 files or whatnot, which can all be integrated into myeLearning for grading and feedback purposes. Another example would be Padlet. Students can be instructed to complete their assignment or tasks using Padlet, as we see here. And once completed, students can submit either a link or PDF document to the discussion forum or even in the assignment inbox, submission box for grading and feedback. Now, this graphic we have here really kind of outlines the process where that spans from your prompt all the way to when it's graded and feedback. So you give them the instructions, they outline the tasks that they must complete. They complete the task and submit for grading, whether it's in myeLearning, the myeLearning discussion forum, Turnitin, or the myeLearning assignment inbox, submission box. And then of course thereafter you grade and whatnot. Yeah. But keep in mind with all of this, you need, as we mentioned earlier, you need to have alignment amongst your learning outcomes, which of course will inform your assessment altogether. And then it'll also inform the ICTs or the technologies that would be used to facilitate that assignment, that assessment. So we know off the bat, myeLearning is one platform that you're going to be using, right? In some cases, it might be requiring students to use one of the previous tools that we mentioned, whether it's Padlet, Scratch, Screencast-O-Matic, etc. So you want to make sure it aligns and not just necessarily using a technology tool for using its sake or just for exploratory purposes and that kind of thing. So it must have alignment. So, and I'm watching the time, so I'm just kind of glossing over certain things. Feel free to ask questions where necessary. We have a template that we have here. Let me just put it up. So
it should be there in the file.
Yeah.
See it?
Yeah.
Okay.
So we have a template here. And we're gonna use this template basically to identify the technology tool that would best meet the needs of your assessment. So in other words, what ICTs would students need to complete and submit their work for the assessment. Like I said, we know we have myeLearning, right, as one platform. In some cases, if it's a collaborative task that students need to work on, you might want to use one of Google, some sort of Google application, whether it's a Google Doc, a Google Slide, That's like slideshows in Google, which we could all work on remotely but collaboratively at the same time, right? So I think, right, and yes, Dan, we will be able to give advice accordingly. All right, so what I'm gonna do is probably put you guys into groups just for about 5 minutes. Maybe you could do that, Diane. Diane?
Sorry, my microphone was off because I didn't want y'all hearing all the ambient noise.
All
Okay.
right, that's okay. So we
You
could put you guys
want to
into
tell them what
groups.
to do and then I'll, yeah.
Yeah, so I'll put the instructions in the chat, and I believe the template would have been sent to you prior to this session. All right. And you could just take about 5 minutes to, basically what you're going to be doing is probably copy and paste, and you will see some parts where you could put your description or the prompt all together. So you could copy and paste that right there, and any sort of more specific instructions. It doesn't have to be perfect, but just kind of get you thinking about alignment and how what tools you could brainstorm, what tools you could possibly use to make the assessment possible. Yeah? Do we understand?
So we're going back into our original groups?
No.
Yes.
No. It's not the original
right.
group. They'll be randomly assigned.
All right.
Okay. That's
So
great. I can go ahead?
And then just fill it. Yes.
Okay.
Are we back up and running?
Yeah.
I think so.
All right, good.
Thank you, Gregory.
No problem. So we could probably just take, for the sake of time, we could probably just take about 1 or 2 groups who can present, at least just give us an idea, even if you want to share your screen and narrow it down to just give us a little reminder of the prompt, tell us the technology tool and how it will be used in your assessment. Yeah?
Okay.
Sure.
So which group wants to go first?
I think we can go. This is Patrice.
So,
Okay,
okay,
so Wayne and I ended up back in the same group, so we decided to just continue from what he would have presented previously. So our technology tools, because his assignment or assessment is a computer program. So the students have to build this program. So for the technology tools, my learning will be the platform by which they would be submitting the assignments, right? And the program that they will actually require to conduct the assignment will be a Python program. This is a program in which the students can download before the assessment is provided. Based on what he explained is that they will have already been taught on how to download these programs in their earlier sessions. So it's not something that is new to them. So they would either have it already installed on their devices, or even if they have to install it now, they would have some knowledge as to how to install it and where they can access the program. So those would be the two technology tools that they would be using. And like I said, myeLearning will be the platform by which they would be uploading the assignments, as well as the platform by which they'll be getting the assignments. So it will be posted on myeLearning, and they will just submit there. A Dropbox will be provided for them to submit it within the stipulated date and time. So they'll have like a cutoff time in which they must submit by. And all of that will be within the assignment write-up, so that the students will be aware as to what is specifically required of them. As it relates to the other items or devices that the students will need in order for them to successfully complete the assessment, they would need to have internet access. They would also have to have access to a laptop or a desktop, and the Python program, which should be previously installed on their device before the date of the assignment, because it cannot be downloaded. And because what he's explaining is that once it's downloaded, it has to be configured. So that cannot be done on the same day of the assignment. So students will be encouraged to download it if they don't have it on their devices at least 2 days
before the assignment. Yeah.
Yeah. So you see why this is necessary, where you have to map out how the technology will be used, right? Because in some instances like this here, you have to have some sort of pre-configuration and so on. So very good. Any comments or questions on that, guys?
One more thing, just note that the programming can be done offline. So although the internet is required, the internet is only required at the point of getting the assignment and at the point of submitting the assignment.
Right. So I think, So I think this one is really good, guys. This is a good example. Anyone has another comment or question, or if not, we could probably just go on to one more group just for the sake of time before we wrap up.
Justin, I think I have a pretty straightforward one to share.
Okay, great. You could go ahead.
Okay, great. Let me just share the file quickly.
In the meantime, I was just trying to type a response to a question Therese is asking. If students indicate that they do not have a computer or their laptop has crashed and so on, I think in a case like that, what we've been advised is that they can seek assistance or some sort of support from what was the department, Diane?
Student support services.
DSSD. Right, DSSD. Right? So they will provide some support in that regard to facilitate students, to cater to students' needs and so on in that regard. All right, Laura, let's go.
All right. Here the topic is basically crop production strategies to deal with some specific situation that may be addressing farmers in a specific country, right? And the description is that they are required to choose a topic from the list provided and prepare a written response, give the idea of the length, but clearly define strategies for production and marketing of the crops, so that the choice is going to be in relation to food crops that we have discussed in the course, right? And the response must be specific to your country. So that that's one of the ways I think that we can get around some of the issues of integrity. The steps, you choose the topic, okay? So you, of course, you will have to go to choice. Choose the topic, specific crop, market, your production plan, your strategy, okay? So all of those have to be chosen. You prepare the response and then submit. The relevant learning objectives is that it should be able to choose appropriate management strategies, production management strategies for different contexts, socio-economic environment, the physical environment, and they should be able to justify their selections. And they should also be able to communicate their positions in writing. So both oral and written communication are objectives in the course. The technology choices would be like choice. We can use the choice tool. We can use assignment for selection, and they can send it in through Turnitin, or as the assessor, I can submit it through Turnitin. And in terms of page 2, yeah, we get in page 2.
You should see it. Let me bring it for you.
I can go it up. Okay.
Yeah.
In terms of my page 2, okay, need internet access, laptops, and I guess what we can do in a situation like this, because we know that we have issues with connectivity, power outages, and so on, the time frame given for the assignment can take care of that. So this is a pretty simple, straightforward one.
Very good. And I like how you mapped out how each tool would be used in terms of the choice activity to select the topic, assignment tool to submit the assignment, and of course Turnitin to check for integrity. So I think it's a really really logical tool. All right.
Let me yes, just for the sake of this discussion, Justin. Even in using assignment, one can have a time period that is specified, and that time period can be a period of days, okay?
Right.
So that you can specify it should be submitted from, and you give them about 7 days, let's say for argument's sake.
Right.
Is it possible, within the context of which we are talking now, for students to be given the option to prepare their response or to submit their response directly online in assignment, because that is an option?
Yes, they can
They
type
can
the
upload
assignment.
it, they can upload it as a file, or they
Right.
can type it right in and submit.
Yes, yes, they can.
But they have a period
Right.
of time within which to do so.
Yeah, what I would recommend, if it is that they have to submit, like type it in the HTML box in myeLearning in the assignment activity, I would always advise that you tell them to type it out in a Word document first and then just copy and paste it into myeLearning. Because what happens is, let's say persons who are not fast typers or might be lacking a little bit, you don't want myeLearning to time out by the time they're ready to click submit, and then they'll thing.
Okay, so if that's a consideration, then that's
also, yeah, also just to come in here with that, most times when you type in that box, when you leave it and you come back, you see the HTML code around the text, and it makes it very difficult for you to read what is in there. And even if you copy it and paste it onto a Word file, it's very messy to look at. So I would say, unless that is absolutely necessary, you really get the student to upload a document, which you would then have, and it stays and it's better.
Okay, well, that was one of my concerns, and I can guess they can probably put it in PDF or something and upload it. All right, so, okay, great. Thank you.
No problem at all. Diana, I don't know if you could get back the PowerPoint up.
Yeah,
yeah, sticking on my side. I don't know what's going on. Yes, Matthias?
Yes, just a comment on the format of submissions in general. During these past few weeks, during doing coursework assessment and having them submitted, I've seen a wide variety in what kind of capabilities students have at home. It varies from Word documents to PDFs, and some don't have access to a computer, so they write by hand and they take pictures and submit the JPEGs of their assignments. So it all depends on what they have in their end, and that is also my concern about. Even if you have a 7-day deadline for an assignment, the internet might still break down, the router might still break down, and they may not be able to meet that deadline. So, and what do we do then?
So in a case like that, if it's an internet issue or some sort of connectivity or even a lack of resources on their part, they could definitely contact DSSD because they provide support for that. I'm hoping before then they would contact you and let them and notify you that that something is lacking on their end in terms of difficulty to complete the assignment. In which case, you can either refer them to DSSD or make some sort of avenue alternative for them to submit. All right, or to get the work done.
Yeah. I'm just saying it might be, even with several days, it might be difficult to be hard and fast with deadlines in this situation.
Yes, definitely. All right, so I'm just going to skim through these because I know we're familiar with these to an extent, and I kind of referred to them earlier. We have the discussion tool, all right, and that's if you have students, you want to get some sort of peer feedback, and in your assessments. If that is a component that you want to include in your assessments, then by all means, I think the discussion tool would be good for you, and that can be done in group and as an individual thing. You also have the myeLearning, the regular assignment tool, right, which enables you to communicate tasks or the prompt, provide feedback and grade and so on. And this one allows submission of various file types, whether it's an MP4, MP3, spreadsheets, Word documents, etc. It's a wide variety. All right. Also, with this particular one, rubrics could be used for marking, and that makes it even easier, especially when you have a large class, because then you just have to, once you put your rubric inside there, you just click necessary block, and that's it. All right. And of course, we could always show you how to do that. You just contact us, and we could walk you through the process. With regard to Turnitin, as I mentioned earlier, it's really a plagiarism detection platform, right? It has its benefits, but it also has its limitations. So, of course, if your assessment is something that is text-based, then by all means you can use Turnitin. But if it's something that is graphical, that is, requires a lot of diagrams, and usually we find that in engineering and some other fields, Turnitin is not the most user-friendly or most applicable. So I would I'm just letting you know the pros and cons of it. But if it is that it's an essay, a straightforward essay, then by all means you could use it. And if it's a high percentage or low percentage, you could take the necessary action. All right. So that brings us to the end of the technology tools or the processes, the process part of alternative assessments. Do you have any more questions by chance?
Don't. No.
Okay. So since I just want to let people know, I emailed to everybody the link to the evaluation for the session, as well as a document that we only received this morning just before the workshop started. I know when people see it and what was raised in it, there may be questions, but I'm sending it almost as I got it. So I will do my best to answer the questions that some people have asked me already when they saw it. So I think the best source for information would be your heads of departments and your deans, because they would have probably been privy to some of this discussion. I think it's things that would have come up with ACWAC and with exam section. What we will do is over the next couple of days try to get clarification and send out FAQs that will address some of the questions that you all have asked. So if you have questions, you can email and we will put those in the FAQs and send them out. So I'm going to put the email address that you can use.
Right, it's ctl_bl@sta.uwi.edu.
Yes, so there's an underscore there. All right, and I see Karelma has an important thing she has to tell with regards to the training materials and courses. Yes, Karelma, go ahead.
Yes, actually, with regards to your information about asking our heads of department, it seems like, at least for us at the School of Veterinary Medicine, well, we are not as well informed and they are not giving some of the material. For example, a lot of people at the School of Veterinary Medicine have not received any of the emails from Margot saying online training for week 1, week 2. We received it for the first 2 weeks, and after that I have not received anything from the dean, from my own dean, or from the head of the department. The only way I was able to register to here is because on the training for week 2, which was the last one we had received, it had the link for the training using Socrative, and when I was able to register on that one. And when I did that course, Dr. Burns Margot said, "Oh, we have been keep sending this info," and I'm like, "But we have not received anything." So I had to contact Margot directly to get the latest thing. So at least at the School of Veterinary Medicine, and I don't know if other people at the Faculty of Medical Sciences, we're not getting anything of this training for faculty at all. So, and they are still asking us to do all these authentic assessments, and I did forward what I had to some of the faculty members that I had on my list as friends, but I don't think it was sent to the whole school. And my concern, if there are more training, I will not be able to get it even if I want to learn how to use another program, because I am not getting that info.
Okay.
So I'm asking my head of the department, I sent the info from Margot, and he himself told me I had not received this.
Okay. So what we could do, Justin, do you have the link close at hand for the website? There's a website, Karelma, where we put everything. We put all the recordings. So what we do, we put the FAQs, we put, everything that we've been doing and that's coming up. Justin posts every week he posts a new schedule of training on that site. So if we send you that link to that site, if you could share that with your head and I'll be very grateful, and I would also send it to the head as well.
Thank you, because this is I understand you wanting to help faculty, but at least in this situation, it's like we are kind of abandoned and still expecting.
Yes, and we're surprised by that because we were under the impression, and we were sending this out to academic all. So we're not sure why y'all are not on that list for academic all.
We are not sure, and right now, IT, I don't think it's gonna work on adding us there.
No. All right. Okay, but thanks for letting us know. So we will include the head of veterinary medicine, and I'll talk to Dr. Burns about medical sciences because I know she has been working directly with medical sciences. So we'll talk with her about that later today when we meet.
Okay.
So just posted the link to the resource site. I'm seeing it there. Are you seeing it, Karen?
You could copy and paste it onto your device, your machine, and whatnot, and you could even bookmark it. And everybody could do the same, so you know what's coming up.
Kindly put it up again, please.
Sure.
In the chat.
Okay.
Right, so at least you could stay abreast of any sort of training that's coming up, any recording that session recording we may have. We have a couple of things that are coming up, that will be coming up between the end of this week and early next week, including this session. And any sort of resources, documents and videos and so on that you might find useful. All right?
Okay, well, that's it for me. I'm closing off. Justin, anything you want to, last words before we close off?
I think that's it for me as well. Feel free to contact us if you need any sort of support or assistance. We're there and we're happy to help. All right?
Okay.
And for those of you who may have completed the tech tool template, feel free to send us if you want any sort of review and tips. All right? I think that's it for me.
Okay. All right. So bye. Have a safe time, and hopefully we will really see each other at some point soon. Bye, everybody.